The morning sun spilled over the sprawling estate, casting long, golden streaks across the manicured gardens, glinting off the polished marble floors of the mansion, where the millionaire moved with a mixture of tension and purpose, his eyes scanning every corner, every reflection, as though the walls themselves might betray him. Today was not a normal day, and he felt the weight of anticipation pressing on his chest with a peculiar intensity, for he had devised a plan so daring and audacious that even he, the master of control, could not predict the outcome completely, and it involved the woman he loved, his fiancée, and her innocent, trusting twins, whose laughter had once been a melody of comfort, but now carried in his mind the delicate fragility of testing human instinct, of measuring courage and devotion under manufactured pressure, a test he rationalized as necessary to see the true depths of their hearts. Outside in the garden, the twins chased each other between the sculpted hedges, their small feet pounding on the dewy grass, their voices bright and unguarded, while their mother, unaware of the storm meticulously orchestrated by the man she loved, hummed softly as she set the breakfast table, arranging plates and cups with a kind of domestic grace that seemed to fill the room with warmth, a stark contrast to the cold, calculated tension brewing in the millionaire's mind, whose gaze flicked repeatedly to the driveway, where a car had been positioned with quiet precision, its engine idling gently, poised to swerve dangerously in a way that would create the illusion of an accident, a test of protective instinct he thought would reveal layers of character hidden beneath everyday composure. But what he could not account for was the quiet presence of the housemaid, whose intuition and careful observation of the household rhythms allowed her to sense the unusual alignment of vehicles and sudden changes in the millionaire's behavior, prompting her to prepare subtle interventions without revealing her awareness, knowing instinctively that her role could prevent genuine harm while still allowing human reactions to unfold. As the staged event began, the car lurched as planned, tires squealing slightly on the driveway's edge, and the fiancée, startled, dropped the napkin she had been holding, her eyes wide as shock surged through her. But without hesitation, her maternal instincts kicked in, and she ran toward the twins, her hands outstretched, her body low and protective, calling their names as her heart hammered, while the twins, sensing urgency though unaware of danger, stopped and looked toward her with trust and confusion. The housemaid, moving quietly but decisively, shifted her position to gently guide the car away from the children's path, ensuring that the manufactured peril remained just that, an illusion, a test without actual risk. Her presence invisible yet profoundly impactful, for every subtle adjustment she made aloud. The fiancée to demonstrate courage and decisiveness while shielding her family from harm. And in that delicate balance of staged chaos and unseen protection, the millionaire, hidden behind the mansion's ornate curtains, observed with a mixture of satisfaction, curiosity, and growing unease, realizing that human instinct could not be entirely predicted, that his clever manipulations were intersecting with real courage and spontaneous moral action, producing reactions that both fulfilled and confounded his expectations. The fiancée's lungs burned as she clutched her twins close, their small arms wrapped around her neck, their trust absolute, her mind racing with fear and strategy, while the housemaid's quiet vigilance ensured that each step, each movement, maintained safety without revealing the orchestration. And as the moment of climax passed and the car slowed to a stop, the fiancée finally exhaled, her chest heaving, her heart pounding with adrenaline and relief, her gaze flicking toward the twins to ensure they were unharmed. And though she remained unaware of the full orchestration behind the scene, she had proven, in real instinct and bravery, her ability to protect and act decisively under perceived danger, a lesson the millionaire absorbed with complex emotions, realizing that control was only an illusion, that courage, care, and quick thinking often emerged spontaneously, shaped by empathy, love, and circumstance, not calculated experiments. And as the mansion settled into an uneasy calm, the twins' laughter returned slowly, echoing faintly as if nothing had happened, while the fiancé clutched them tighter, a protective embrace fueled by instinct rather than manipulation, and the housemaid, standing slightly apart, allowed herself a quiet, almost imperceptible nod, knowing that her unseen interventions had ensured both safety and authenticity. And in that intricate dance of fear, love, and precaution, the first true test had ended, leaving everyone, especially the millionaire, with a deeper understanding that human character could never be fully measured through contrived trials alone, that instinct, morality, and courage were revealed most powerfully when guided by unseen hands and the unspoken bonds of trust that connected people in ways no experiment could fully anticipate. After the adrenaline of the staged accident had faded, the mansion seemed to breathe a fragile, uneasy calm. Yet beneath the surface, tension lingered like an invisible current threading through the halls and corridors, twisting around each corner, each doorway, and lingering in the millionaire's thoughts as he watched his fiancée move through the house. With a mixture of lingering shock and deliberate composure, she moved carefully, her movements measured, almost as if sensing unseen eyes upon her, while the twins played quietly at her feet, still absorbing the residue of fear, their innocent chatter now tempered with the awareness that something extraordinary and unsettling had occurred, even if they could not articulate it. The millionaire, seated in the grand study with its towering windows, polished oak desk, and leather-bound books lining the shelves, cataloged every reaction, every subtle change in expression, every hesitation, and every instinctual gesture, noting how she balanced fear with reason, panic with calm, and concern with a strategic sense of action. And yet, he could not ignore the quiet, unobtrusive presence of the housemaid, who moved like a shadow, her observant eyes recording the nuances of the household, the dynamics between mother and children, and the silent tension that remained in the air. Knowing that her careful guidance had not only prevented actual danger, but had allowed the fiancé to reveal courage and decisiveness without compromising safety. Lunch was prepared and set on the long dining table, polished to a reflective sheen that mirrored the anxious eyes of those around it. And as the fiancé guided the twins to their seats, she spoke softly, almost too softly, answering their light-hearted questions with warmth and a gentle humor that belied the intensity of her inner thoughts. While the millionaire observed from the periphery, each gesture dissected and filed away, every reaction analyzed. But slowly, he began to notice something unexpected. The natural flow of maternal care, the effortless coordination of protective instinct, the patience mingled with quiet authority, and the tiny, unremarkable acts of love that could not be manufactured or faked. And he felt a creeping unease because his meticulously designed test had inadvertently collided with reality. And reality was far more complicated, far more nuanced, and far more instructive than his controlled simulations. The housemaid, noticing the subtle shift in his demeanor, understood the lesson unfolding. The truth of character could not be revealed through fear alone, but through ordinary moments, through measured choices, and through quiet resilience. And she continued her careful navigation of the household, offering small interventions only where absolutely necessary, such as placing a chair in a safer position for the twins or subtly guiding the fiancé toward calmer breathing when she paused in brief moments of lingering shock, all without disrupting the natural flow of events, all without drawing attention to her role. And in that delicate balance, the millionaire watched and began to realize that he had underestimated the strength of unobserved courage, the quiet moral compass that guided instinctual protection, and the subtle, guiding hand of someone who understood both human vulnerability and human potential. As the afternoon wore on, the twins' curiosity led them to playful mischief, small explorations that brought smiles and laughter, and each time, the fiancée responded with patience and gentle discipline, her decisions immediate, thoughtful, and infused with a nurturing intelligence that the millionaire could not manipulate or predict, while the housemaid remained a stabilizing presence, unobtrusive yet powerful in her silent guidance. And slowly, the billionaire began to feel the stirring of a realization that what he had intended as a controlled test of character was, in truth, a lesson in humility, empathy, and the complexity of human response. For courage and care were not measured in fear alone, but in the way ordinary moments were met with presence, decisiveness, and moral clarity. As the shadows lengthened and the afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon, he observed the fiancée, quietly comforting the twins after a minor disagreement, mediating with calm authority, validating their emotions while reinforcing boundaries. And he could see, with painful clarity, that the authenticity of these moments, these unplanned, unobserved actions, revealed more about her character than any orchestrated crisis could, and the housemaid, sensing his internal struggle, allowed him space to witness these truths without interference, knowing that the real test was not about manufactured danger, but about observing human hearts in their natural state, unfiltered by artifice. And as dinner approached, the atmosphere in the mansion shifted subtly, a quiet warmth replacing lingering tension, though the millionaire remained contemplative, his mind wrestling with the profound insights he was only beginning to grasp. The fiancée moved through the evening with grace, laughter returning slowly to her voice, the twins' joy filling the dining room. And yet beneath this domestic normalcy, the billionaire felt the weight of his own misjudgment, the recognition that control could not manufacture loyalty, that fear could not reveal true love, and that real courage often emerged not when tested, but when unplanned situations required instinctive protection and moral clarity. And as the night settled, the housemaid quietly ensured that the twins were bathed, fed, and settled for bed, her intervention subtle, almost invisible, yet crucial in shaping the outcome of the day. While the fiancée reflected on her own reactions, sensing a mix of confusion, pride, and tentative awareness that she had navigated a trial she didn't fully understand, and the millionaire, finally allowing himself to feel humility, observed from his study as the house settled into quiet, recognizing that the real lessons of the day were not in the staged accident, but in the ordinary, unseen acts of courage, love, and protection that defined true character. And in that moment, he understood that he had witnessed not just a test, but a revelation of human resilience, maternal instinct, and the quiet heroism that often goes unnoticed yet shapes destinies more profoundly than any calculated plan ever could. The night had fallen over the mansion, the sprawling estate now cloaked in shadows, the flickering glow of chandeliers casting long, wavering patterns on the marble floors, and yet inside, tension simmered beneath the surface, unrelieved and insistent. For the millionaire had called his fiancée into the grand study, a room lined with shelves of books, gilded frames, and towering windows that reflected the dim light of the city beyond. And as she stepped inside, her movements were cautious, deliberate, a mixture of lingering fear from the staged accident and curiosity at the sudden summons. While the twins had been tucked safely into their beds, their soft breathing a reminder of innocence and the stakes that had been silently tested earlier in the day. The millionaire sat behind his polished desk, hands clasped together, eyes dark with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation, the weight of his own actions pressing down upon him as he prepared to reveal the truth of his elaborate test. And as the fiancée approached, the air seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken questions, rising tension, and the raw energy of withheld secrets finally demanding release. When he finally spoke, his words careful, deliberate, and yet tinged with urgency, he revealed the orchestration of the day, explaining how the staged accident had been designed to observe her reactions, to see how she would protect the twins, and to measure the depth of her courage and instincts under what he had manufactured as danger. And for a moment, the fiancée's eyes widened in shock, disbelief mixing with anger, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she struggled to process the revelation, feeling a surge of betrayal, fear, and indignation that had nothing to do with physical harm, but with the manipulation of trust and emotion. And in that charged silence, the housemaid, who had been quietly lingering just outside the study, sensed the imminent tension and chose to remain present, her calm, observant energy grounding the room without intruding, ready to intervene if necessary. For she understood that this was a confrontation not of physical danger, but of moral and emotional reckoning. The fiancée's voice, when it finally emerged, was steady but firm, a mixture of controlled anger and clarity, as she spoke of trust, love, and the danger of manipulating emotions to test loyalty, emphasizing that genuine care and courage could not be proven through fear, only revealed through natural, unforced action. And the millionaire listened, first with defensiveness, then with dawning awareness, as she articulated the very lessons he had hoped to observe yet had ignored in his own planning. That human character, maternal instinct, and moral courage cannot be manufactured, calculated, or coerced, and that the quiet, unseen choices people make under ordinary circumstances often reveal far more than the most dramatic orchestrated events. The housemaid, sensing the shift in the billionaire's demeanor, allowed him the space to absorb these truths, her presence a silent anchor as he wrestled with the realization that his plan had been both illuminated and undermined by forces beyond his control. And as the fiancée continued, she expressed gratitude for the housemaid's subtle guidance, acknowledging the invisible support that had ensured the twins' safety without diminishing her own courage or agency. And in that moment, the billionaire's eyes met those of the housemaid, a flicker of humility and recognition passing between them, a silent acknowledgement that her quiet heroism had shaped the outcome in ways his meticulous plans could never achieve. The conversation unfolded with an intensity that seemed to stretch time, each word weighted with emotional resonance, each pause a space for reflection, as the fiancée laid bare her principles, her values, and her understanding of love and responsibility, while the millionaire began to feel a profound mixture of guilt, awe, and introspection, realizing that the desire to control and measure had blinded him to the very qualities he sought to witness, and that courage, loyalty, and love could not be extracted through manipulation, only observed and nurtured in environments of trust, empathy, and genuine care. The twins, safe in their rooms, became a quiet symbol of the stakes involved, their vulnerability and innocence a reminder of the responsibilities that accompany love and protection, while the housemaid's vigilance remained subtle but powerful, her eyes occasionally flicking toward the children's rooms to ensure they were undisturbed, her presence a quiet testament to the importance of guidance without interference. And as the night deepened, the millionaire found himself listening, truly listening, to the fiancée's words, her insights cutting through the layers of pride and control he had built around himself, revealing the truths he had overlooked, truths about human connection, responsibility, and the profound depth of instinctive courage. Eventually, the fiancée's tone softened slightly, not from fear or submission, but from a desire to rebuild trust, to restore a fragile equilibrium. And the billionaire, humbled, felt the weight of his own recklessness and the extraordinary patience and wisdom of the woman before him. And as he finally spoke, his voice quieter, more vulnerable than ever before, he acknowledged the errors of his ways, the arrogance of believing that fear could validate love, and the necessity of respecting the unobserved acts of care and courage that define real character. The housemaid, sensing that the confrontation had reached its emotional apex, quietly excused herself, leaving the two alone to navigate the aftermath of revelation and reflection, her silent vigilance having ensured that no harm had occurred and that the true lessons of the day could unfold. And as the fiancé stood there, processing the millionaire's admission, the mansion seemed to exhale with the release of tension, the shadows of the night softening around them. And for the first time that day, there was a sense of clarity, of understanding, and of the profound realization that love, courage, and loyalty cannot be staged or tested artificially, but must be witnessed, nurtured, and honored through respect, empathy, and trust. And in that moment, the millionaire finally recognized the magnitude of the lesson he had inadvertently orchestrated, acknowledging that the true heroism of the day had been revealed not through danger, but through natural, instinctive, and unobserved acts of love, protection, and moral courage that could never be manufactured, only lived. The morning after the revelation arrived quietly, almost imperceptibly, with soft light filtering through the heavy drapes and casting a gentle glow over the mansion. Yet the atmosphere within remained charged, layered with the weight of the previous day's tension, the lingering questions of trust, and the unspoken realizations of human fallibility. As the millionaire moved slowly through the grand halls, each step deliberate, reflective, his mind still wrestling with the enormity of the lessons he had witnessed, the courage of the fiancée, and the quiet heroism of the housemaid, whose presence had guided the day's events towards safety and truth without fanfare or recognition. And now, As he entered the drawing room where the fiancée sat quietly with the twins at her side, he felt a mixture of apprehension and hope, for today he would not test, manipulate, or orchestrate, but simply engage, listen, and attempt to rebuild the fragile threads of trust he had strained, aware that no staged accident, no experiment, could substitute for the authenticity required to truly connect with another human being. The fiancée, sensing the shift in his demeanor, observed him carefully, her posture calm yet alert, protective yet open, her eyes reflecting both skepticism and a tentative willingness to forgive, as she silently weighed his intentions and the sincerity of his presence, while the twins, innocently engaged with toys on the floor, occasionally glanced up, their small smiles and laughter a poignant reminder of the stakes involved, and the responsibility that now rested on both adults to navigate the complex emotional terrain with honesty, integrity, and care, for the fragile trust that had been tested could only be restored through genuine action rather than words, and the housemaid, standing slightly apart, observed with quiet satisfaction, her intuition having guided the previous day's interventions and now providing a stabilizing presence, a silent witness to the reconciliation and growth that was beginning to unfold. As the millionaire approached, he knelt slightly to meet the twins' gaze, speaking softly, honestly, acknowledging his errors, his misguided attempt to control and measure, and expressing gratitude for the patience, courage, and instinctive heroism demonstrated by the fiancée, whose calm authority and unwavering focus had ensured their safety, and whose strength in the face of contrived danger had revealed the profound depth of her character. And the twins, sensing sincerity and warmth, responded with innocent gestures of acceptance, their small hands reaching out, their laughter mingling with the tentative smiles of the adults. And in that moment, the millionaire began to comprehend the full weight of his actions, realizing that love, trust, and courage could not be quantified, staged, or controlled, and that the truest measure of character lies in instinctive care, moral clarity, and empathy expressed naturally, freely, and without expectation of recognition. The fiancée, her composure intact, allowed herself a subtle smile, softening the tension in the room, her voice calm yet firm as she outlined the importance of respect, trust, and partnership in any relationship, emphasizing that no test, no manufactured crisis, could replace genuine understanding, communication, and shared responsibility, and that the foundation of love rested not in fear or observation, but in empathy, mutual respect, and the courage to act rightly, even when unseen. And the billionaire, listening intently, felt the walls of his ego and control crumbling, replaced by an awakening humility and a desire to engage differently, to lead with respect rather than manipulation, to observe rather than orchestrate, and to nurture rather than test, while the housemaid, recognizing the subtle shifts in demeanor, quietly ensured the twins remained safe and engaged. Her presence a calm counterbalance to the emotional intensity, a reminder that quiet, unseen guidance often shapes outcomes more profoundly than dramatic interventions, and that the truest courage sometimes resides in discretion, patience, and the willingness to act selflessly. The conversation evolved, flowing naturally from acknowledgement of mistakes to shared reflections on the day's events, and in those exchanges, the billionaire began to understand that his plan, while flawed in execution, had inadvertently revealed the extraordinary strength of the human heart, the instinctive capacity for care, and the profound importance of empathy, observation, and moral courage, lessons that no staged danger could teach fully, but that real life, in its ordinary, unpredictable moments, continuously offers. And as the afternoon sun reached its zenith, casting warm light across the polished floors and gilded furniture, the fiancée extended a gesture of cautious trust, inviting the billionaire to join her and the twins in play, a simple yet powerful act that symbolized forgiveness, understanding, and the restoration of relational balance. And he, humbled and grateful, accepted, setting aside ego and control, and in that shared laughter, the room was filled with warmth, joy, and a palpable sense of reconciliation, the tension of the previous day dissolving into a new equilibrium grounded in authenticity, care, and respect. while the housemaid, observing from a respectful distance, allowed herself a small smile, her role in shaping the outcome. Complete, knowing that her vigilance and subtle interventions had preserved not just safety, but the integrity and emotional growth of everyone involved. And as evening approached, the mansion seemed to exhale, the shadows softening, the air lighter, and in that calm, the millionaire finally understood that the true measure of love and courage is not revealed through contrived trials, but in the quiet, instinctive choices we make, in the protection of those we care for, and in the humility to recognize and honor the strength and wisdom of others. And in that realization, the room, once tense with fear and uncertainty, now radiated with connection, trust, and the promise of a shared future built not on tests or fear, but on understanding, empathy, and the courage to act rightly, naturally, and selflessly.